I almost ran over her. Right there, in the middle of that wet, smoldering pile of trash, I saw something I will never forget as long as I live. A Doberman mother, so thin her ribs looked ready to tear through her skin, lay collapsed in the mud and garbage. A rusted chain pinned her neck to the ground, half buried like an old wound nobody had cared to touch. And scattered around her body were 7 tiny lives, newborns, red-skinned and filthy, like dolls rolled out of a torn plastic bag. They crawled slowly, mouths open for milk, but found nothing except the cold hiss of wind slipping through the gaps in a container. All the noise of the city dropped away. I could only hear my own heartbeat, pounding, insistent, warning me, if you don't do something now, this will end right here. I knelt down. My 65-year-old hands trembled as I tipped an old water bottle toward her cracked, dry muzzle. Breathe, sweetheart. Just drink a little. Her clouded eyes fluttered open, weak, then closed again. A ragged breath escaped. My chest tightened. I couldn't tell if I was saving her or just watching her die. And then, a warning horn blared behind me. Beep, beep, beep. The garbage truck was backing toward us, its heavy wheels grinding through the wet sludge. I froze when I saw the chain still caught beneath the metal undercarriage, pulled taut like a trap ready to finish the job. I dove into the mud. My knees screamed, but I didn't stop. My fingers wrapped around an old bolt cutter I'd pulled from the bed of my pickup. Teeth clenched. I squeezed once. Nothing. Again. Blood seeped from my thumb, mixing with the mud and trash. A sharp snap rang out. The chain broke. I lifted her up. She felt like a bag of wet sand in my arms. I wrapped the 7 puppies in an old car cloth, holding them tight against my chest. And in that moment of almost certain loss, something strange happened. The smallest one, no bigger than my fist, crawled up and pressed itself against its mother's chest. A faint whimper, like wind slipping through an old window frame, rose from the mother's throat. I looked up and met those cloudy eyes. It was like a message, weak but clear. Don't leave us. I'm 65. I've seen my share of loss and parting, but no sound has ever cut through me like that one weak whimper. I knew I had no way back. My name is Frank Doyle. I spent my life driving buses in Cleveland. Retired a few months ago. Folks say retirement is easy. For me, it's just been long days, an empty house, and a clock ticking me closer to the end. That morning, I went to the dump behind an old warehouse to collect bottles like I sometimes do. The sky was gray, the smell of burned trash mixed with stale rain. No one wanted to linger there. But when I saw that scene, a dying mother, filthy newborns, a rusted chain, that dump turned into a battlefield. In that moment, I wasn't just a tired old man. I was the only thing standing between life and death. I clutched them to my chest and ran toward my rusty pickup. The only thought hammering through my head was, if I don't do this, no one will. The garbage truck roared behind me, metal crunching in its jaws. I flung the door open, laid them on the passenger seat, and turned the key. The engine coughed like old lungs, but caught at last. In the mirror, I saw the heaps of trash being crushed, but the only sound I could really hear was the faint whimpering beside me. I pressed the gas, my heart beating with the rattle of the metal frame. I didn't know if Rebecca's clinic was still open, if Ruby, the name I'd already whispered in my mind, would survive. But I knew one thing. From that moment on, my life had turned onto a different road. I was no longer a bystander. I was the man carrying a shivering family out of the city's garbage. And from the instant Sparky, the tiniest one, pressed itself against its mother, I understood. There were things ahead I couldn't yet imagine. The old pickup engine roared as I gripped the steering wheel, eyes locked on the water-streaked road ahead. I couldn't remember how many red lights I'd blown through, All I knew was that every bump made the puppies shiver inside the rag I'd wrapped around them. Ruby lay limp beside me, heavy as iron, her breaths shallow and broken, and Sparky, the smallest, clung to her chest, his tiny legs trembling. I shouted into the dark cab, my voice cracking. "Don't give up, Ruby! Please, don't you dare give up!" I didn't even know why I called her Ruby. Maybe because, for one fleeting second, her clouded eyes had caught a spark of red fire when the smallest pup pressed against her. The name just slipped out, like fate had spoken for me. When I was young, I had a mutt named Max. The day I shipped off to the army, no one was left to care for him. My neighbors sent him to the pound. By the time I came back, it was too late. That memory has haunted me for decades. I never kept another dog. The guilt was too heavy. But now, watching Ruby gasp for breath and her litter trembling beside her, that memory cut me open like a knife. I wasn't going to fail again. The neon glow of a small clinic finally flickered at the end of the block. The faded sign read, "Rebecca Animal Care." I slammed the brakes, stumbled out, and pounded on the door, nearly screaming, "Rebecca! Open up, it's an emergency." She appeared, hair tied back in a rush, lab coat smudged with ink. The horror in her eyes when she saw Ruby and the pups told me everything. "Oh my God! Frank, put them on the table now!" I laid Ruby on a clean towel, my hands shaking, then unwrapped the cloth holding the pups. Rebecca's gaze swept over them, her fingers pressing against their tiny chests, lips drawn tight. 3 of them. No reflexes. It felt like someone's fist crushed my chest. I staggered back against the wall, but Rebecca gripped my shoulder firmly. "Listen to me. 4 are still breathing. And Ruby, she has the slimmest chance, but it's not over. You can't collapse on me now." I nodded, tears falling faster than I could wipe them away. Rebecca hooked an IV into Ruby's vein, muttering under her breath as she worked. The chain cut deep into her neck. Blood's clotted for days. This isn't just exhaustion. She's been tortured. Who did this to her? I told her about the dump, the garbage truck, and the chain I'd cut. Rebecca shook her head, anger flaring in her eyes. This wasn't abandonment. This was cruelty. I looked at Ruby's neck, scarred, raw lines beneath her patchy fur. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number lit the screen. "Old man, that's my dog. Stay out of this if you know what's good for you." A chill went straight through me. I hadn't spoken to anyone but Rebecca. How could they know? I turned toward the clinic's window. Across the street, an old truck sat in silence, headlights off. I felt eyes on me, watching. Rebecca placed the 4 surviving pups in a makeshift incubator lined with towels and hot water bottles. I knelt beside them. Their fragile bodies quivered, mouths gaping as if calling into the void. I touched one with my fingertip. Their nails scratched my skin, so paper-thin I was afraid even my breath might break them. "Frank, can you help me?" Rebecca asked. "I'll do anything." "Take this dropper. Feed them the replacement milk, 1 drop at a time. Don't let them choke, slow and steady. This is their only chance." My old hands shook, but when the first drop fell into Sparky's mouth, he swallowed. Just once. The whole room seemed to brighten with that single movement. I looked at Rebecca, my voice breaking. "He wants to live." In that moment, I thought of my empty house. The picture of my late wife is on the wall. The dining table has only 1 chair left in use. I'd lived through countless nights with no purpose. But here, in this small clinic filled with the sharp smell of antiseptic, I realized, I was holding the lives of 4 tiny beings, and somehow they were holding on to what was left of mine. Outside the window, the truck had vanished, but I knew this was only the beginning. Deep in my gut, I felt it. This story wasn't going to end with just a rescue. That night, Cleveland lay wrapped in thick fog, the street lamps outside slicing thin, yellow streaks into the clinic. I sat beside the incubator, eyes fixed on the 4 trembling lives inside, my chest tightening every time I heard Ruby's raspy breath. Rebecca had gone to the back room to warm more milk. It was just me then, my old hands trembling as they rested on the cold metal table. Then a sound. Clack. I looked up, thinking it was only the wind. The sound came again, clearer this time. Footsteps outside, heavy, dragging over gravel. I held my breath. A figure passed the frosted window, and another followed. My heart dropped. No mistake. 2 big men, low caps pulled down. A rough voice barked through the glass. "That dog's mine." "Open up." I froze. After years behind the wheel of a bus, I'd seen drunks and fights, but never had I felt fear so sharply. The room crowded in on me. I was too old to pick a fight. Rebecca came back, pale as a sheet. "Frank, is that them?" she whispered. I only nodded. I couldn't find the words. A hard bang on the window. Thud. The whole room shook. The pups screamed. Ruby, half out of it, groaned and clawed weakly at the table as if trying to shield them. One of the men growled, "Don't be stupid, old man." "That's mine. She had the pups in my kennel property. Give her back, I ground my teeth." Property? I looked at Ruby, the chain's red marks on her neck, her breath ragged. That wasn't property. That was a mother on the edge of death. Mustering every scrap of courage, I stepped to the door, voice shaking but firm. "Do you have proof of ownership? Vaccination records? Any paperwork at all?" He snorted, a cold laugh like a blade. "You don't need papers. You just shut up." Rebecca edged back, whispering, "I called the police. Hold on." The pounding grew harder. The wooden frame rattled. The pups wouldn't stop crying. My throat tightened, sweat running down my spine. I'm 65. My legs aren't what they used to be. But when I saw Sparky, the littlest, drag himself from the cloth and nudge his mother's chest, something happened. Ruby opened her eyes. Cloudy, tired, but clear enough. Her gaze met mine and seemed to hand me a responsibility. "Don't let them take my babies." I sank to my knees, gripping her paw, whispering, "You are not alone. I won't let anyone steal this family." Another blow rattled the door. It nearly burst. Fear changed into something else in my chest. A hot anger. A fierce resolve. I knew I didn't have muscle on my side, but I could stand in the way. I turned to Rebecca. "Keep them safe. If they get in, I'll be the one in front." She grabbed my arm hard, tears shining. "Frank, you won't be alone." Footsteps outside came faster now. Curses spat into the night wind. I drew a long breath and reached for the wooden cane propped in the corner, the cane I used for my aching knee. Tonight, it would be my only weapon. A light flashed in the yard. The 2 silhouettes slammed up against the door, hands ready to batter it down. My heart hammered, but there was no turning back. The door shook violently. The hinges screeched as if they were about to snap. Each slam they delivered sounded in my ears like a funeral drum. I stood in the middle of the room, the wooden cane trembling in my hand, but my eyes never left the bundle where the 4 tiny lives were wailing hoarsely. Ruby lay outstretched, her neck convulsing with each breath, her eyes open and following every sound. A voice screamed through the glass. "You damn old man! Open up, or we'll smash this door down. That dog's mine. Those pups are mine. Trash like you has no right to keep them." Each word cut me like a blade. I looked again at the chain marks pressed into Ruby's neck, the dark red wounds still leaking. If this is what they call ownership, I'd rather see her dead than go back to them. I shouted through the crack in the door, "You left her in the garbage! You left those babies to die. Nothing here belongs to you anymore." A harsh, rasping laugh answered, cold as a knife. "You think you can save them, old man? You'll die with them." My grip tightened on the cane. I knew my strength was nothing, but I knew I had no other choice. I took a half step back and planted myself in front of the exam table where Ruby lay. Rebecca trembled, but her eyes flashed with resolve. She gripped her phone and whispered, "I called the police. Just hold on a little longer." Just a little longer felt like a lifetime. The door rattled. The wooden frame groaned. The pups cried louder, like they could sense the Reaper's blade nearby. My throat closed up. A flash of my wife crossed my mind, her face from the years I couldn't save her from that vicious illness. That same helplessness had haunted me ever since. Now fate had thrown me into the same wager: watch and lose, or stand and try. A sharp crack rang out. Snap! A piece of the door latch split. I raised the cane, my legs buckling, but my eyes burning. I yelled, "You'll have to get past me first!" And then something strange happened. Ruby, frail as she was, pushed up on her front legs, body shaking like it might break, and lifted her head. A low, deep growl escaped her, small, but enough to hush the room for a beat. She turned her gaze toward the door, and there was fire in her eyes. I choked up, feeling a new strength. I put a hand on her back. "That's right, Ruby. We are not alone." From the street came the sound of another engine. A headlight swept across the window. A motorcycle braked hard. Hurried footsteps pounded. A young voice called out, breathless, "Mr. Frank! It's Mateo. I got the evidence. I came back." Rebecca and I both jumped. For a moment, the two men outside fell silent. Mateo shouted again, "I've got video of them chaining the dog and dumping her at the dump. The police will see everything. They'll pay for this." The air in the room exploded. The pups stopped crying for a heartbeat. Ruby lowered her head, but her eyes still had that spark. I felt fear in my chest shift into something else, something like hope. Then an angry roar came from outside. "You little punk! You'll regret sticking your nose in." Heavy footsteps thundered toward the door. I knew then the real fight had only just begun. The door shook violently, worse than the storm outside. I gripped the wooden cane and planted myself in front of the exam table. Outside, a rough voice bellowed, "You little punk! You filming this? I'll smash that phone right in front of you." Mateo shouted back, his voice trembling but fierce. "The police are on their way." "It's all recorded. You won't get away with this." My heart thudded. For a moment, I feared for Mateo. The kid's only 17, but I also felt his young fire light up that stuffy room. Ruby lifted her head. Her cloudy eyes reflected the neon glow. Even exhausted, she let out a low, rasping growl, as if to say, "I won't let you take my babies." Rebecca stepped beside me, gripping a flashlight like a weapon. She whispered, "Frank, don't back down. If they get in, we hold them off. Just buy a few more minutes." I nodded. My throat tightened. Bang! The door splintered. Cold air rushed in. A rough hand slid through the crack, groping for the latch. I swung the cane and brought it down hard. He jerked back, cursing and howling. In that instant, I heard Sparky's faint cry. He wriggled free of the cloth and dragged his weak legs toward his mother. Ruby mustered the last of her strength, leaned over, and let her tongue brush his face. The sight clamped my heart, a mother on death's edge still giving the last warmth to her child. My eyes blurred. Memories flashed, walking my wife into the hospital for the last time, her look saying, "Don't let me go alone." I was helpless then. I swore I wouldn't make that mistake again. Outside, footsteps came faster. Another voice roared, "Break it down! Get them!" Mateo yelled, louder now. "No!" "It's all recorded. The cops will be here any minute." There was fear in his voice, yes, but there was steel too. A 17-year-old facing grown, brutal men. And me, an old man of 65, standing on the thin line between life and death. Rebecca squeezed my hand and whispered, "If they come in, I'll shield the pups. You hold Ruby." I took a deep breath and scanned the little room. Damp-stained walls, a shaky medicine shelf, the bulb flickering in the draft. A fragile trench, but the only shelter these lives had. Crack! Another chunk of the door broke away. A gust poured in, dust and paper swirling. I let out a roar and raised the cane, braced for the clash. Then, Ruby forced herself up. Her legs trembled as if they might give at any second, but she pulled herself upright and stood between the table and the door. Her breathing was ragged, but there was a strange, fierce light in her eyes. A low, deep growl rumbled from her throat, soft, but it struck me like thunder. Rebecca froze, tears falling. "My God, she hasn't given up." I laid my hand on Ruby's back and felt her tremor strengthen, like she was summoning whatever was left. Sparky crawled under her belly. Ruby bent her head and licked him, then fixed her gaze on the door that was shaking apart. In that moment, I understood. Miracles aren't always blinding beams from the sky. Sometimes they're a weary creature finding the strength to stand when everyone believes it's finished. Then, a siren wailed. Headlights swept the window. The police. The two men outside spat curses. "Damn it! You got away this time, but we'll be back." Their footsteps retreated. The door still quivered, but the pressure eased. Inside, the air slackened into exhausted silence. Only Ruby's ragged breathing and the weak cries of the pups. I collapsed into a chair. The cane clattered to the floor. Rebecca sobbed in relief. Mateo stepped in, clutching his phone like it was a talisman. I looked down at Ruby. She sagged back, more exhausted than I'd ever seen. I reached out, my hand shaking as I touched her head. "You did it. You stood up. Don't give up now." The red and blue patrol light swept across the window, casting streaks over Ruby's pale face. For a moment, I thought I could finally breathe, but when I bent down, I saw her breath had become so broken that they were almost gone. Her thin chest barely rose and fell. Her eyes were half shut, clouded. Rebecca rushed back, stethoscope pressed to Ruby's chest, her voice urgent. "Frank, her heartbeat's so weak." She's about to go. The whole world seemed to shrink into that instant. I gripped Ruby's paw and whispered, my voice shaking, "Sweetheart, don't give up. Not after everything. Not now." Mateo stood nearby, clutching his phone with white knuckles, his lips tight. The boy had just seen Ruby stand up to death, and now he was watching her fade. His eyes were red, his voice hoarse. "Mr. Frank, I can't take it if she goes." Rebecca pulled out a small syringe, her hand trembling but her eyes steady. "I'm going to try a cardiac stimulant. If it doesn't work, there's nothing else." I nodded, my heart about to burst. She injected the vein, then placed both hands on Ruby's chest, pressing rhythmically. The air felt heavy, filled only with her count. 1, 2, 3. Ruby didn't respond. It felt like the sky itself was pressing down on my shoulders. For a moment, I thought I was too late. And then, a tiny cry. Sparky. The smallest one crawled out of the cloth, trembling, dragging himself toward his mother's chest. He nestled close, nudging his tiny muzzle against the red chain mark wound. The sound he made was so faint it was almost inaudible, but it rang in my heart like a bell. Rebecca looked up, eyes wide. "Frank, look!" Ruby trembled. One front leg twitched. Her chest rose once more. A raspy sound came from her throat, not a whimper this time, but a low, rough growl. Mateo burst into tears. "She's alive! Mr. Frank, she hasn't given up." My tears fell onto her back. I leaned in and whispered, "That's it, Ruby. Stand up, sweetheart. They need you." Rebecca gripped my hand. Her heart beats back. Weak, but it's there. The whole room seemed to flare with light. I broke down, sobbing out loud, my shoulders shaking. Mateo wrapped his arms around me, and for the first time in years, I let my tears fall without shame. But the moment wasn't over yet. The siren outside cut off. 2 officers stepped in. Officer Hall came forward, his voice firm. "We caught the 2 men trying to run. This boy's video will be our evidence." I nodded hard but kept my eyes on Ruby. She still lay trembling, but her eyes cracked open and turned toward her litter. 4 tiny bodies squirmed under the cloth, reaching for their mother. Ruby lifted her head slightly, trying to roll enough to touch noses with Sparky. Just that touch was enough for the pups to press closer. A single, small cry rose up, its first echo in the room like a hymn of rebirth. I sank into a chair, my hands covering my head. I'd thought at 65 my heart had no room left for storms, but in that moment, I understood. Some storms bring you back to life. Rebecca exhaled hard, wiping sweat from her brow. "If it weren't for you, Frank, and that little one, Ruby wouldn't still be here." I held Ruby's cold paw in my palm, gripping tight. Her weak head rested there. Her eyes blinked slowly, as if giving me a promise. "I'll fight. But I need you beside me." Outside, the sirens had faded, leaving only the city wind. Inside that small room, we, a retired man, a teenage boy, a woman doctor, and a dying dog family, clung to the thin thread between life and death. And I knew, from that moment on, I wasn't just some accidental rescuer. I had become part of this family. Whatever the ending, I was going to walk with them all the way. The days that followed passed like pages of a miracle being written anew. Rebecca's small clinic turned into an unexpected home for a family that had been pulled from the brink. And me, a 65-year-old man who once thought his life had already closed, suddenly found himself busier than ever, changing clothes, rinsing bottles, warming the little ones inside my old shirt. Ruby recovered slowly. The chain wounds on her neck began to heal, her breathing steadier with each day. Every time I laid my hand across her back, I could feel life stirring again, fragile but unyielding. And the pups. Lord, the 4 who had survived grew a little more each sunrise. Their eyes blinked open, first looking to their mother, then to me. Sparky, the littlest, stayed stubborn as he was the first night he crawled to call for her. He lagged behind the others, but each step was proud, as if he knew he had lit the spark of survival. Rebecca laughed, rubbing his tiny head. "This is the smallest warrior, Frank." Little, but the strongest Mateo became part of the family too. Every afternoon he pedaled over, carrying formula or a bag of towels. I looked at him and saw the determination of youth burning in his eyes. He had once stayed quiet in the face of cruelty, but since that day, he had chosen to speak up. I believed he'd grow into a decent man. One spring morning, golden sunlight poured across the backyard of the clinic. Rebecca opened the door and said softly, "Let's let them have a little fresh air today." I led Ruby outside. Her steps were slow but steady. The 4 little ones tumbled behind, falling and scrambling over the wet grass. I sat on the steps, my chest tight. I'd never seen anything more beautiful. a mother who had once been dying in the trash, now walking in sunlight with her children. Ruby paused, turned, and looked at me. Her brown eyes were clear now, carrying a language beyond words. That gaze, look back, struck me straight in the heart. It wasn't the look of an animal. It was the look of a mother, of a soul that had passed through hell and refused to surrender. Her eyes said, "Thank you. Because of you, we're still here." I nodded, my vision blurred. "No, Ruby. It was you and your little ones who saved me." Mateo chuckled, but brushed away a tear. Rebecca stood beside me, exhaling softly. "This is a miracle, Frank." A real one. That very day, I brought Ruby and her family home. My old living room filled with the sounds of yelps, clumsy paws, and a mother's call. On the wall hung my wife's picture. I whispered to her, "My love, I found a reason to live again." A new family, a new thread to tie the days that remain. That night I sat in my chair and watched Ruby curl around her pups, breathing evenly, peacefully. My heart swelled with a feeling I never thought I'd have again. Faith. If you asked me now whether miracles exist, I would tell you about the day a tiny pup crawled out of a cloth, pressed against its mother's chest, and woke not just a dying family, but also an old man who thought he had no hope left. And I believe anyone who sees such a thing would understand. In a world full of shadows, compassion is the only light that leads us back to life. Have you ever saved a life? Maybe it was a trembling kitten in the rain, a bird fallen from its nest, or a stray dog looking up at you with pleading eyes. In that moment, did your heart tighten? Did you reach out, even with trembling hands, to hold on to a fragile breath? Tonight, as I watch Ruby and her pups sleeping in peace, I realize these fragile lives don't just need us. They give us a gift, the gift of faith, of compassion, of the simple truth that we still have reasons to live and to love. If you've ever felt that, please share your story in the comments, because sometimes just one story can inspire another rescue, another chance at life, somewhere out there. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for staying, for listening, for walking with me, with Ruby, and with her little ones. Because of you, this isn't just a miracle. It's a flame, spreading further with each telling. And if your heart also believes that compassion can change the world, please subscribe. Not just to hear more stories, but to join a family of those who believe in life, who believe in miracles. Thank you, truly.